Claire Dawson could still smell the ocean when she sat down for breakfast on the third morning of her anniversary trip to Maui. She could not smell the woman coming. The stranger arrived before the coffee did. Green sundress, Mark's favorite color, sliding into the empty chair across from Claire's husband like she'd been assigned the seat. She ordered his usual before he did. Loco moco, eggs over hard. Claire watched her husband stand up and hug the woman like she was a cousin at a funeral, and then look over at Claire with a smile gone smooth and managerial. Great news, babe. Rebecca flew in for the Bradford dinner Tuesday. She's at the sister property. It's all above board. Claire had planned this trip for 8 months. She'd paid for her own ticket because Mark said the company rate made the bookings easier to keep separate. Her sister back in Columbus thought she was the luckiest woman she knew. What Claire found in her husband's suitcase 2 days later would end her marriage. What she did with it 3 months after that would end a great deal more. You should know who Claire was before Maui, because it explains everything she did after. 14 years a senior accountant at Whitaker Hall Building Systems. No relation, just a coincidence of names that used to make people laugh at parties. 3rd floor, general ledger, the desk with the good stapler. Mark worked there too. 5th floor, vice president of sales, a man who could sell siding to a lighthouse. They'd married young. For 12 years, Claire had been the calm one. If a waiter overcharged them, she didn't complain. She corrected the math, paid the right amount, left a fair tip. If Mark forgot her birthday, she told his mother it was her own fault for hating fuss. She absorbed discrepancies. That was her job at the office, and somewhere along the way it became her job at home too. She used to think calm was a kind of agreement she was making with the world. Peace traded for silence, a fair deal. It took her 37 years to run the numbers on that trade. Quiet was never a yes. She just hadn't known it yet. The woman at that breakfast table wasn't a stranger. Claire had met Rebecca Foster 18 months earlier, at the company Christmas party, and had spent every one of those months telling herself what she'd seen that night meant nothing. She was an accountant. She knew what it looked like when a column was lying to her. That night, ballroom, open bar, sales department loud in the corner like always. Claire had heard her husband deliver a punchline, and a woman she'd never met finish it with him, word for word, in sync. A hand flat on his chest, like she was checking his heartbeat. Claire mentioned it calmly in the car. Hands folded in her lap. Mark didn't get angry. He did something better. He looked at her with warm, patient pity and said Rebecca was just a colleague, that Claire was tired, that holidays were hard for her. By the time they pulled into the driveway, Claire was apologizing. Still, she'd set one boundary. No texting Rebecca after 9 at night. Mark agreed so fast it felt like a gift. 2 weeks later she woke at 11 to his face lit blue in the dark. Not texts. A work channel. Technically, he'd never broken the rule. That was the thing about men like Mark, they didn't break rules. They relocated them. Maui was supposed to be the correction. He'd stood in their kitchen in February and said, "Let me make this right." He'd book everything through the company travel desk. The corporate rate would save them 40%. He'd square it with payroll after. The accountant in Claire's head had raised a hand. Personal travel on a corporate booking was against policy, and she'd helped write that policy. But Mark had an answer before she finished the thought, the way he always did. Everyone does it. It's a rate code, not a crime. She wanted the version of him he was describing. So she put her hand down, paid for her own ticket out of the joint account, and told herself that made it clean. At the gate in Columbus, Mark was already on his phone, thumbs moving, smiling at the screen with an expression she recognized, the one that used to be hers. "Work," he said, tilting the phone away. "Just putting out a fire." 12 hours in the air, and he put out fires the whole way across the Pacific. Claire remembered thinking with real relief that whatever he was tending to was 5,000 miles behind them now. It wasn't behind them. It landed Tuesday, 3 days before their actual anniversary. Upstairs after breakfast, Claire was not calm, though no one watching would have known it. Mark found her by the window and delivered the sentence she'd carry the rest of her life. You're being jealous, Claire, and it's not attractive. Men need female friends. You've had my whole life for 12 years. Let me have one. Then he kissed her forehead, what he did instead of arguing, and went down to the pool. That afternoon he asked her to check his email for a boarding pass while he showered. His calendar was open. Tuesday sat there blank. No Bradford dinner. Nothing at all. Just a white square like a lie with the lights off, and her husband singing in the shower down the hall. She said nothing. Anyone raised by a mother who could turn a Tuesday into a courtroom understood there was no scene Claire could make that wouldn't become evidence against her. Proof she was emotional, that she imagined things. So she started keeping a record instead. Dates. Times. Who said what. She told herself it was to prove herself wrong. If you've ever loved someone who lies well, you know exactly what that feels like. On day 5, Mark went snorkeling with Rebecca and people from Bradford that Claire never once saw. He asked her to pack his garment bag for the flight home. 12 years married and he still couldn't fold a suit. Inside the bag, folded in thirds, was a hotel folio. Not their room. 2 king suites at the sister property. 6 nights. One checked in under the name Foster. Both charged to the same account. At the top of that account line sat a 9-digit billing code Claire knew better than her own phone number, because she reconciled it every month on the 3rd floor. Cost center 4400 CD. Client development. Her anniversary week. Her husband's mistress's Ocean View suite. And the company was paying for all of it. Claire stood in the hotel room holding the folio with 2 fingers, like it was wet. And the first thing she felt wasn't heartbreak. It was professional. Somebody's books were wrong, and they were about to meet her. They flew home. Claire gave the marriage one last honest chance, because 12 years deserved a real conversation, and because she needed to hear what he'd say when she wasn't guessing. Sunday night, their kitchen in Columbus. She laid it out plainly. She knew about the room, she knew there'd been no Bradford dinner. Tell her the truth and they'd go to counseling. Mark didn't flinch. He laughed soft and tired like she'd misread a spreadsheet. Babe, it's a block booking. Sales does it all the time. You're seeing ghosts and rate codes. Then he called his mother. Monday evening, Helen sat in Claire's living room with her purse on her knees and explained men to her. Men today need female friends, sweetheart. You should be grateful he still comes home to you. Claire's own husband never did come home, not really. She tried her best friend next. Susan listened, winced, and then said the thing that told Claire she was alone in this. I mean, did anything actually happen? Because if you push this, you lose the house, the marriage, everything. Over a hotel bill. Claire looked around her own living room and did the inventory. Husband lying. Mother-in-law recruiting. Best friend negotiating her surrender. In accounting, that's called a control failure. Every safeguard meant to protect her reporting straight back to the man she was auditing. Fine. She'd been asking people to believe her, and belief was Mark's currency. He printed it. She stopped asking. She started printing things instead. Paper doesn't get tired. Paper doesn't take sides. She sat down with a highlighter one Wednesday night with their joint bank statements. Not his, theirs. 12 years of a shared account, fed together like a garden. In March, $4,000 had moved to an account she didn't recognize. In April, $6,000 more. In May, a mortgage broker had called about refinancing the house, a house with her name on the deed, and nobody had ever called her. This wasn't flirtation anymore. This was logistics. You don't move money for a feeling. You move money for a plan. Then she found the invoice that told her exactly how far ahead of her he was. A retainer, $1,400, paid in February, to a firm called Kessler Family Law. February. The same month he'd stood in this kitchen with his hands on her shoulders and said, "Let me make this right. Let me book Maui." He hadn't been booking an anniversary. He'd been booking a runway. The trip, the smiles, the loco moco. All of it happened after he'd already sat in a lawyer's office and priced out the end of their marriage. Claire closed the folder, squared its edges. Somewhere upstairs, the shower turned on. Her husband, home from a dinner that had probably never happened. She thought very calmly, the way you think about weather, he has a head start. But I count faster. Linda Foster's office sat above a bakery on Grandview Avenue, and the whole place smelled like cinnamon and consequences. Silver Bob, reading glasses on a chain, and she let Claire talk for 10 full minutes before she touched her pen. Ohio is a no-fault state, Linda said. The affair itself buys you sympathy, not money. But dissipation is different. If marital funds paid for that woman vacations, hotels, a court can charge that against his share of the estate. She leaned forward. Here's what I need from you. Documents, not feelings. Bank records with your name on them, that's yours. Anything from his employer, that is not yours to take. Understand? Claire understood rules better than anyone, which was exactly why she knew where every one of them ended. Where do you work? Linda asked. Same company as him. 3rd floor. General ledger. Linda went quiet for a moment, then said something Claire carried around for weeks like a stone in her pocket. I can win you a divorce with what's in this folder. But whatever's happening on that company's books isn't my jurisdiction. It isn't yours either. Unless you're prepared for what reporting it costs you. She didn't know yet what it would cost. She found out that July. Quarter close came the way it always did, and Cost Center 4400 CD walked into Claire's spreadsheet on its own legs, the same roll-up she did every year. She ran the 18-month trend twice, because she didn't believe it the first time. Client development spend for the 5th floor had grown 40%, while actual regional revenue grew 4%. The line was fat with travel. Upgraded suites, airfare pairs booked same day. 1 primary traveler and 1 guest profile with no employee number attached. Scottsdale, Charleston, San Diego, which Mark had described over dinner as brutal, honey, just brutal. Same 18 months. Maui wasn't a lapse. Maui was a line item in a program, and her anniversary had been folded into a budget like a personal lunch folded into a per diem. She made one more attempt at home because she was thorough, and because some part of her still wanted him to save himself. She laid the folio on the counter. Explain the second suite to me like I'm the auditor, Mark. Because someone eventually will be. He looked at the paper, then at her, and said the truest thing he ever told her. It's just numbers, Claire. Don't make it a story. Monday, a corrected expense report appeared in the system. Resubmitted, reclassified, backdated approvals that hadn't existed the previous Thursday. He knew she was watching. His answer wasn't to stop. His answer was to tidy. That frightened her more than shouting would have, because tidying is fluent. Tidying means you've done this before. In August, he came back to her. Flowers on Fridays, dinner at the steakhouse where he'd proposed, his hand warm on her back telling the waiter they were celebrating being lucky. Rebecca transferred to Cincinnati that same month, 90 minutes away, and for about 2 weeks Claire let herself wonder if the folder could just stay a folder. Peace was right there, discounted, familiar. Then came 3 dozen roses delivered to the 3rd floor, where everyone could see with a card in cursive, to my Claire. 12 years and forever. It wasn't his handwriting. His assistant had ordered her forever, the same way she ordered his lunches and his corrected expense reports. Even his repentance was delegated. Only the image was ever handled personally. The Friday of the real anniversary dinner in Maui, Mark had put a freshwater pearl bracelet on her wrist, gold clasp shaped like a wave, and said 12 years, Claire, like he meant it. She'd worn it every day since. Late one September night, working the quarter's expense detail, she hit line 41. Nilani Fine Jewelry, Maui. $1,900. Category: Client Appreciation Gift. Approved, Whitaker. Her anniversary present was a business expense. She was the client being appreciated. She confronted him with her wrist held up, the way you'd hold up evidence. Am I the client, Mark? Or am I the appreciation? For once the mask slipped sideways instead of off. You get a $2,000 bracelet and you're still jealous. Do you hear yourself? The gift wasn't the apology. The gift was the receipt. Holstead, she meant Whitaker Hall, had an ethics channel, anonymous intake, then a named affidavit, protected under policy Claire herself had helped write. She opened the form one Thursday night, cursor blinking, and priced it out. If it stuck, Mark wouldn't just be disciplined. 18 months of resort suites gets you terminated, maybe prosecuted. Every dollar a judge would use to calculate her settlement would evaporate with his badge. The house would have to be sold. Filing meant burning her own financial future to tell the truth about his. She saved the draft and closed the laptop. It stayed a draft 9 days. What reopened it wasn't courage. It was an email from HR, conflict of interest review, your access to regional sales accounts. Someone had gone to HR before she'd filed anything. She knew exactly who'd taught Mark that move. In the meeting, an HR manager named Priya explained gently that given Claire's marital situation, the company felt it cleanest to reassign her off any accounts touching regional sales while things settled. 14 years, and she was walked back to her desk like a visitor. By Wednesday, she heard her own story recited in the break room by a woman who didn't know she was standing behind the coffee machine. Claire's been struggling since the separation, going through his expense reports looking for the girlfriend so sad. Nearly Mark's exact words. Rock bottom was quiet, like everything in her life. Susan stopped calling, then finally met her for coffee just to say gently that everyone thought she should let this go. Helen told a cousin that poor Mark was living with a woman conducting an investigation instead of a marriage. They were offering her a real deal. Drop it, keep the house, stay Claire the reasonable. In 5 years this would be a story about a rough patch. At 2 a.m. at the kitchen table, she thought about her mother, who screamed and was dismissed as crazy. She thought about herself, who whispered and was dismissed as jealous. Volume was never the variable. The variable was whether anyone would pay a price to be believed, and whether that someone would ever be her. She typed her name into the affidavit field and pressed submit. The investigation moved fast and colder than she'd hoped. George Reyes, chief audit executive, slid a single page across a windowless table. From this moment, Mrs. Whitaker, you speak to no one about this matter. Not colleagues. Not family. Not your husband. The findings, when they came, were worse than Claire had imagined. 18 months, 6 trips carrying a guest profile: Scottsdale, Charleston, San Diego, Nashville, Miami, Maui. $41,000 of shareholder money spent developing exactly one client. But the number that made her stomach drop wasn't Mark's signature. 3 of those reports carried a second required approval, for anything over threshold, and it belonged to Walt Brennan, Senior VP, Mark's mentor, the man who'd toasted at their wedding. Whether Walt never read the reports or read them fine and understood that rainmakers get rained on, either way the machine above her husband had known, or chosen not to. In her profession, those were the same entry in different fonts. Mark found out it was her on a Tuesday. He came home gray as newsprint. "You're the affidavit," he said. "My wife, you're the affidavit." She said nothing, by then legally instructed to, and privately fond of the silence as its own kind of answer. He went practical instead of loud, which was worse. No severance if this sticks. No reference. Maybe charges. And your settlement is a percentage of what? Of nothing. They'll sell the house before I lose anything. Withdraw it, Claire. Say you misread the codes. Every number in that threat was accurate. She'd run them herself at 2 a.m. It would have been so easy to fold. Linda laid the real arithmetic out plainly. If Mark was terminated for cause, restitution came off the top of the marital estate. $41,000 gone and the house listed within the quarter. If Claire withdrew, his attorney was signaling a generous package: house, Support at the top of the guideline, clean and fast. As your lawyer, Linda said, taking off her glasses, the second door is financially superior. It isn't close. Then in a different voice. As a person, I've watched women take the quiet deal for 30 years. They get the house. Then they live in it alone with the version of themselves that's signed. The day before the hearing, Whitaker Hall's general counsel and Mark's attorney sat her down with a document flagged in cheerful yellow. Not withdraw, lawyers never say the real word. Clarify. An amended statement. Alternative interpretations of travel classifications. In exchange. No termination, coaching, a repayment plan, and the house conveyed to her in full. Everyone wins, the counsel said, smiling like cologne. She took the copy she was entitled to and left. That last night she sat at the kitchen table with the settlement on her left, her affidavit on her right, and the pearl bracelet in a Ziploc bag between them. She did the accounting honestly. There had been real love in the early columns. She'd never let anyone tell her otherwise. But every marriage keeps two sets of books, and in the true one, she had been quiet in every language a woman can be quiet in, and every silence had been recorded somewhere as consent. In the morning she put the bracelet in her purse and drove to the office through clean autumn light. The audit committee room had frosted glass and a table too big for its purpose. No audience. No drama. Just water glasses, a court reporter, and George Reyes squaring his files. Claire placed the settlement on her left and her affidavit on her right, side by side. She'd earned the sight of them together. Mark was brought in a few minutes later in the navy suit, the good watch. Passing her chair, he let his hand rest on her shoulder for exactly 1 second, for the room. A husband supporting his confused wife. She let it sit there. Mrs. Whitaker, Reyes said, before we proceed, the committee understands you may wish to amend or withdraw your statement. Do you wish to amend or withdraw? Mark gave her the smallest nod. Say the right thing. He still thought even then that her quiet all those years had been a yes. Claire reached into her purse and set the Ziploc bag on the table, pearls coiled inside like something sleeping. For the record, she said, this was purchased in Maui for $1,900 and expensed as a client appreciation gift. It was my anniversary present. I'd like it logged with the folio and the airfare records. Mark said her name once, quietly. It had 12 years in it and it landed. It cost her something to keep her hands still. You're right about one thing, she told him, level as month end. It's just numbers. So I'll let them talk. She asked Reyes for his pen. Hers was in her purse under the settlement, and she wasn't reaching past the truth to get to it, and signed the affidavit at the bottom. Then she pushed the yellow flag settlement back across the table and signed. Quiet was never a yes, she said, to the room, to the record, to every ear that had been listening. Mark tried the old voice, block bookings, standard practice, his wife under strain, and discovered in real time a room his currency couldn't clear. A committee member read out the backdated timestamps and asked him to explain the sequence, and he couldn't because arithmetic doesn't blink first. Near the end he said, quietly, almost to himself, if I'm not the guy everyone likes, I'm nobody. Nobody answered. There's no line item for that. He was terminated for cause the following week. $41,000 in restitution, structured as repayment. No prosecution. Companies rarely want the noise of court when they can have the quiet of a signature. Walt Brennan announced early retirement the same month. Package intact. A card that circulated on the 5th floor that people signed without meeting each other's eyes. Rebecca resigned from the Cincinnati office before her interview date and moved to Denver. Claire never spoke to her, not once. People kept waiting for that scene. It was never going to happen. Her business had been with the arithmetic, and the arithmetic was done. Mark came to her apartment in November, flowers crushed against his chest, and knelt on the welcome mat. I need you, he said. Not I see you. Not you were right. Just his need again, arriving like an invoice the way it always had. You had me for 12 years, Claire said. You spent me like the company card. She stepped back inside and closed the door gently, because she wasn't angry anymore. And gently is how you close a ledger. The house sold in March to a young family who loved the maple out front. Her half was smaller than the settlement would have paid. She'd known that going in, and she'd sign it again with the same pen. She sold the bracelet that sprang to an honest jeweler on High Street, who examined the pearls and offered her $1,900, market to the dollar, which made her laugh out loud in the shop. The money bought a reading chair and a lamp warm enough to grow things under. She still balances the books on the third floor, respected now the way a smoke detector is respected. Nobody entirely comfortable, everybody a little safer. Sometimes a woman lingers at her desk after a question about a 401k, or leaves a sticky note on her monitor that just says thank you for the quiet ones. Some evenings Claire sits in that chair with her tea and her own accounts, rent, utilities, a small foolish line for fresh flowers, ordered in her own handwriting, and runs the numbers on her one quiet life. Every column, every row. No discrepancies absorbed. None outstanding. Peace you buy with silence is a loan, and the interest is always you. She paid on that loan for 12 years before she learned that quiet was never a yes. And the day she finally said no with her own name under it, she lost a house and got back a woman.